Hello and welcome to the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap, episode 86. I'm Rich Edwards, and joining me today is the very dapperly dressed Graham McDonald, and back after an extended break of riding around on his motorbike, David Crawford. How are you guys?
Good.
Extremely well, Richard. Thank you.
We were having a little conversation before the show started, and I think we need to just put this one on air. We're discussing, public impression versus reality. What's worse, car dealer versus real estate agent? They're both at the bottom of the trust ranks, as much you can trust these things. And my take is that a car dealer at least is offering you something, right? So they're taking an item, they're maybe zhuzhing it up a little bit, or they're importing it into the country, they're putting in some effort, dealing with the legalities of it. They are then offering, once you purchased it, a warranty and all this kind of stuff. They've got to provide land for that item to be on while it's sold. They'll help you with your finance. They'll broker your finance. They'll do the lot. And they've got to stand by their product ultimately. Which of those things does a real estate agent do for you?
I've got this great little do-up in Ranui with excellent views, sunshine in the morning, and just a couple of small little reissues on the limb. Could be yours for a fraction. Just thinking about it, actually, Richard, in terms of puffery, I don't think anything beats a real estate agent on the land when it comes to extolling the hidden virtues of a shitbox house in the middle of a development about to be bowled. Plus, as I also pointed out, somebody out there, we should be grateful to real estate agents because somebody out there had to buy all the 2.3 EcoBoost Mustangs, right? And they fulfilled that job adequately, admirably, in fact.
Well, if you compare the two, right? So the real estate agent, they don't own what they're selling, unless they're being slightly dodgy. They are. You've got to do the packaging and prep for them. They don't sort any of the legals for you. You've got to do all that yourself. And they offer no warranty at the other side. And it's just their commission's probably just as juicy. Got to take on this, David? I think you're in the middle of selling a house at the moment.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that a real estate agent, at least I'm careful when I choose the agent for the sale, is a no sale, no fee. Sure, I've got to pay the marketing costs, but then I expected that. But if the house doesn't sell, they put in all this effort and time and they don't get any money for it. Yeah. So what they are doing is they're providing a service in a tricky area of legal entanglement that if you had the time and the energy, you could sell the house yourself. But what you're doing is you're paying them a commission on success for doing all of that for you. So I don't necessarily do downers on real estate agents. It's quite a hard yard. Quite a hard road for them to hoe in a way. But in terms of public perception, I wouldn't have put real estate agents below car dealers, particularly second-hand car dealers. I still...
Oh, the burn!
Well, look, if there's some real estate agent podcast out there listening to this enraged at my comments, then drop me a line and maybe we should have a debate. We'll put the three of us against three real estate agent representatives, and we can debate which is the better. Which is the better? I know definitely there's a lot of friends.
I'm off to go and buy some. I'm going to buy some tassel loafers right now. I'm off to go and get some.
Yes. Look, anyway, that's a fun way to start the day. But we do have a bit of a more somber note to actually carry on to here, and then we'll get back into some fun stuff later. But a real legend of the industry and my longtime friend and business partner, Vern Whitehead, has passed away. Now, for those in the trade who met Vern, you will have pretty much everyone I know has very fond memories of Vern. He was somewhat of a social glue, I think, within the supply chain industry, and was one of those people that could bridge the gap between the new and used sides of the trade. Very well known, very long history. He founded AutoFile, our now friendly competitive publication, back many years ago. He had many other investments in the automotive trade, including Dealer Systems in the 1980s, one of the first warranty and protection product companies in the industry. He was the operator of AutoTalk.co.nz, which was probably the first website for a lot of New Zealand car dealers, or certainly back in the late 90s, early 2000s. That started off into the UDC Auto Show, which Graham, you did back in the day. Then he worked with me. After he sold AutoFile, he worked with me on funding AutoTalk, and then subsequently Transport Talk, EVs and beyond. He's been quite the EV advocate over the last few years. A very sad day for the industry, and certainly for us and his family. Last Friday, Vern was 83, big celebration for him. And I'm going to call it that. I don't think it's a funeral. I don't think there's technically even a funeral. It's a celebration for Vern this weekend over on his beloved Waiheke Island. You must have a few fond memories of Vern, Graham.
Yeah, I do. And I don't want to sort of wax on this one this morning because it is a really somber note. But I just sort of raised a point, I think it might have even been to you. Vern was a statesman, and there's not a lot of true statesmen in this industry, but Vern really was that man who transcended all the different boundaries and somehow had the knack of communicating with and understanding everybody's position, even if he didn't agree with it. Vern could walk into a crowded room of people and it would just seem like Vern knew everybody, and if he didn't know everybody, within 15 minutes he did. He was just one of those people, and a genuinely nice person. He was my mentor, I suppose, through my journey in the industry from the very early days when I got involved in the council at that stage with Board of VIA. Vern signalled me out at a function and had a chat to me about the industry, how it worked, what his perceptions were, how we could help, what sort of confidence and belief he had in me. And he sort of mentored me through that process for many, many years. And right up to the last catch-up we had, which I think was at David Vincent's retirement party, was still offering wisdom, guidance, advice. He was just that person. And yeah, it is a huge hole in the industry that I don't think there's somebody that's going to fill those shoes. That's Vern was a statesman in his own right.
And David, unlike a lot of people who work closely with the used side of the trade, Vern had pretty reasonable rep and relationship with the new side as well.
He did. And, he's the sort of person that was happy to agree, happy to disagree. What he was mostly interested in is what are your viewpoints and why do you have those and what do you mean by that and how do you see things going? He was a real people person that he could just sit down and you could hit up a yarn with him pretty quickly, and very approachable. He was the sort of person, I can't ever remember a time that he caused anyone offense. He was that sort of person. He was always very careful to listen and to hear and to accept other people's perspectives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was so well liked. I'll be honest, there were times back in the old days when we were running the odd controversial story, and we'd put Vern's name on it because people would let him get away with stuff because he was just so well liked and respected. And people would assume that if Vern was doing it, it was being done for reasons. We did that once or twice. Look, he is a big loss. Our thoughts do go out to his wife Betsy, who in her own right is almost a little bit of an industry legend as well. Then his son Darren, daughters Annabelle and Rachel, and grandson Dominic. There'll definitely be a few industry people over on Waiheke this weekend for that event, and there might be a few large glasses of red wine drunk, I suspect, in Vern's honour. And I might eat a vanilla slice, because if Vern was missing from the office, generally he was downstairs at the Hollywood Bakery getting a vanilla slice. So one of those on his behalf. Break diet for that. Well, if you are in the industry and you haven't received any news or details from this through the email that we sent out, and you did want any details for this weekend, please don't hesitate to give me an email, richard@automediagroup.co.nz. Now, that is the sad bit for today done. Well, or if you say sad, because this weekend's going to be about celebrating Vern. He was an awesome guy. We've got a fun one. We've got a really fun one that we're jumping to. Do you know what it is, Graham? Have you worked it out yet?
No, because you're always surprising me, Richard. You have so many fun stories to bring across to me. What have you got?
So, we've spoken recently about a certain dealer in Hamilton that
Oh,
may
this
have
one.
gotten a little bit in debt to one of their suppliers and was being liquidated by them. And that was Hamilton EV, and they were being put into, or liquidation efforts were being underway from IBC. Well, for the want of a better word, he has allegedly done a runner. The owner, Nicholas J. Downs, earlier this week posted on Facebook that after a period of pressure and mental health, a risk to his mental health, he was upping sticks to Dubai, where he was going to go and work for a property company. And when we say upping sticks, as in doors closed, signs down, off he's gone. And the vehicles are being collected, and the building is being turned into an ice cream shop, I have been told, which is irony. Ice in a place that was selling EVs. So yeah, Hamilton Electric Vehicles Managing Director Nicholas Down has allegedly gone to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. That's according to a social media post seen by AutoTalk, apparently sent from an Auckland International Airport lounge. It was the Qantas business class lounge, so I'm not sure he's flying up to Dubai economy class.
I don't know how bankrupt he actually is then.
In the post attributed to Hamilton Electric Vehicles, the author says he's fundamentally bankrupt and taking a break after several months of intense business dealings and some incredibly hard decisions on top of a well-hidden serious health issue. We don't want to joke about mental health here. Please don't think we're doing that. Effective this morning, I am moving to Dubai and will take a break from business to work on for a company in the property management industry. AutoTalk earlier reported a liquidation bid filed in the Tauranga High Court, with the plaintiff now confirming the matter has been delayed until possibly April due to a technicality. We understand that was because Down turned up to court with a lawyer, and the High Court judge was like, yeah, not in my court, buddy, and rescheduled them further down the line. We understand, and we've heard from other businesses that have been left out of pocket, and we've heard even there are members of the public who have been left out of pocket. Now, that will be both on a cash basis and the fact that Down had a habit of making some fairly large promises to companies. So on a lot of the vehicles he sold, he offered free warranties for life, 5-year battery warranties, and in February was offering 20,000 kilometers of free road user charges for vehicles sold in that month. Now, considering you're only just, I'm not even sure if you're actually able to buy them for electric vehicles yet. I'm going to take a wild guess that those cars sold in February will not be getting their 20,000 kilometers of free road user charges. So yeah, a few people were missing out. He'd also last year bought Hamilton Vehicle Testing and Compliance when that went into receivership. He's also a local Grant Cardone licensee. He loves his personal development courses, Grant Cardone and a couple of other ones. Worked for a cannabis product company. So he's an interesting wee chap. I've spoken to him on Facebook. He's refusing to speak further. Some other people have come into the woodwork that I'm speaking to, so there's more mileage coming in this story. So yes, an interesting one there.
Well, careful on this one, because I sort of think about it as we were talking. No one ever wants to make fun. We talked about fun. This is actually not fun at all. No one ever wants to make fun of anybody's failure in this industry, because failure can come at the hands of many different sources, whether it's financial or it could be mental health issues. It could be all manner of different issues, and we're speculating here. We've got some fairly good reasons as to why this might have actually occurred. And I have to say, when I saw that social media post as well, Richard, I thought, well, this sort of ticks all the boxes for I'm in the Qantas Business Lounge on your dime and I'm heading out of the country, but here's all the reasons why you could tick off, I'm not there anymore, I'm not paying any of my bills. And by the way, another glass of that Chianti, please. It didn't rest terribly right. In this industry, it is so hard to make a buck. It's even harder to keep a buck. But generally speaking, when things are going downhill, there are ways and means to do it properly, and there are ways and means to abscond. And you could pick which box you think has been ticked here. Yeah.
I think the issue from my side, and why it does perhaps need to be seen in a bit of an interesting light, is that, and I'm not even going to add allegedly to this, Nicholas J. Downer is an interesting character. He has made some non-friends within this market from some of his activities and comments. Obviously, he's had some interesting history in recent years. He got in trouble for them having some signage up within the dealership after COVID, purporting to be COVID information signage that was actually Voices for Freedom signage, and had some interesting comments around it. He, of course, was I'm sure he needs to be alleged on this one. He had some issues around illegal dumping of rubbish near the dealership last year, and he certainly made some interesting friends within the trade and some interesting relationships within the trade and within the broader EV community. So, yeah, be interesting to see. I hope that this all can be settled, and I hope that people don't lose too much money. But that will yet to be seen, and I think someone's going to end up holding the can for at least some of this.
It's quite tight out there in the marketplace, and I suspect that this might be the first of many to come, or first of some to come. And I think the writing appears on the wall when you start to see some rather interesting promises during the sale process. 20,000 free ruck for a system that's not yet in place, lifetime warrant of fitness. They're really bold claims and aimed really at the gullible public. And unfortunately, a lot of the public are gullible in that sense. They think, oh, we're going to get a deal here. But for me, when I start seeing those sort of activities at any dealership, my eyebrows go up and I wonder what's going on behind the scenes.
I think we should be cautious about saying that about the free warrant of fitness thing. I think there's at least one major distributor that offers that with their vehicles. So we might want to be cautious about putting that in that category.
Well, yeah. Well, that's also an interesting. Okay, well, then I'll caveat by saying, in my opinion, that's rather an interesting sales tactic. I would, anything that's a lifetime added to a sales tactic, my eyebrows go up, whether it's mainstream or not.
Yes, no, that's right. Look, we're gonna see dealers go under in the next little bit, no doubt about that. I think we'll see some people in the supply chain as well and around the industry. Do you think we're gonna see any distributors forced out of the market by this rough period, David? I mean, it's probably more complex than that and more down to the CCS, but yeah.
I suspect that there may be some consolidation. I suspect that what we are going to see is distributors, brands trying to cannibalize market share off each other. I think I've lost track. Is it just dealing with cars? It's not trucks and motorbikes. So it's 57 different brands, maybe a few more, in a marketplace the size of New Zealand. There's a lot of diversity, and we have. Unfortunately, given the size of our market in New Zealand, every new brand that arrives is going to try and take a slice of that existing share.
And I think we're up to a count of 5 new brands this year.
Yeah, and then and the reason our prices are a little bit higher is that they get a small slice of that share and a small volume of vehicles go through, but they've still got to get to the overheads of parts, warranties, all of those sorts of things that go with being a distributor. And you don't have the volume to back it. That's why the Australian market, which has more brands than we do, but per head of population, they have less when you sort of do the maths that way. And they can spread their overheads over 1.2 million vehicles versus 150,000 vehicles here. So it's a huge difference. I think we are in for some consolidation.
Yeah, definitely. Even if you
suspect, one of the things that we are,
I wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2 brands get picked up by the likes of Inchcape and some of the other, and the Armstrong, some of the groups that hold multiple brands.
I think one of the things that we are seeing is a reduction in the number of variants within existing brands. And I expect to see that to continue because the overhead associated with all of the variants in terms of parts and logistics is quite high. So I think we'll see that.
Yeah. Right, now let's move on to the next one for the day, and it's a slightly older story, but one that came out. It was one that I should have seen coming. Minister on ruck for all. It will take some time. So, Transport Minister Simeon Brown came out all hot with the EV ruck rates, and one of his justifications back then was about why he acknowledged in a previous publication of ours that basically he acknowledged that the rates that the electric vehicles and PHEVs were paying, we'll get more on the PHEVs in a minute, could be perceived as unfair against what currently is being paid by petrol vehicles. However, he put that giant caveat on it, is that, just hold steady. This is only a temporary thing in the very short period until we have ruck for all. Now, it now appears that very short period is not that very short, and Transport Minister Simeon Brown acknowledged the transition of all vehicles to road user charges could take some time. Some, including this publication, took Brown's insistence that universal ruck was coming, and that it was a partial justification for the disparity between road user fund contributions from EV, PHEV, and traditional vehicles as indicative that the system would be coming fast. The minister has now confirmed that is not the case, also noting such a system will be electronic rather than using the traditional ruck system. So e-ruck is coming, not ruck for all. E-ruck for all is coming. Moving all vehicles to an electronic form of ruck will take some time to design and implement, but we are determined to have an efficient, user-friendly system introduced in the coming years, Brown says. The first indication of the timing came in the form of announced rise in petrol excise through 2027, beyond the term of the current government. To add a sting to the tail, Brown says that those rises will be reflected in ruck rates. This hasn't been picked up by the broader media yet since we posted it, but basically ruck will continue to rise over the next 3 years, which is interesting because ruck doesn't rise that often. Any changes to FED signal a corresponding change to the ruck equivalent. Signal changes to FED should not be seen as providing a timetable for transitioning vehicles to ruck. The final rates of ruck, so anyway, that last little bit is dated now, but it's kind of obvious this was always going to be the case, isn't it, David, that it was going to take a heck of a long time to get this in place, particularly considering they've clearly made an internal decision to go with electronic ruck, not the paper system.
Yeah, that surprised me. I first started arguing for ruck for all vehicles way back in 2005, 2008, when I was with the Ministry of Transport under that then Labour government. And that was sort of like a cup of cold sit to politicians at that time, so it didn't go anywhere. But when I was with the Motor Industry Association about 2014, 2015, I started to lobby again for the uptake of ruck, and that officials needed to start thinking about it now, and that by 2025 we should be into a ruck system because of the way of the different vehicle mixes and types of propulsion we're expecting to see. And they fluffed around, but the previous two governments, the Labour Greens and then Labour, they really weren't interested in this. They just thought it was too hard. That they've gone to e-ruck decision did surprise me, because that means a long transition. You can't, the cost of retrofitting is too high, so you have to transition it in. And if you're going to transition it in, that's going to take quite a while. And they've been playing around with e-ruck with heavy vehicles with some success. Heavy vehicles, though, are used to a ruck system, and diesel vehicle owners are used to a ruck system. And to be honest, I don't see the problem with a paper-based system. I have a diesel ute. We have a petrol car. So I'm used to paying ruck. And there are thousands of light vehicle owners that have diesel vehicles that are used to paying ruck. And they are both petrol and diesel owners, probably. So I'm intrigued about the e-ruck decision only, but not surprised that this would take some time. The administration behind it to build an e-ruck system for all vehicles is not straightforward. It is complex, and it needs to be relatively foolproof and tamper-proof. That's the thing about FED, is there's very low rates of evasion, whereas for ruck, there's slightly higher rates of evasion.
I think the appeal to Simeon, and I guess the current nature of the government, is you can build a lot of new funding models and user pay systems around an e-ruck system. So, for example, they've got some incredibly ambitious plans around the roads of national significance. Well, it's very easy for them to basically auto charge for those roads at a higher rate when you're driving on them. It's easy to put in congestion charging. You drive through Auckland Speedy Junction at 8 in the morning, it costs you $6. You drive through at 1 in the morning, it costs you $1. That kind of stuff is so much easier to put in place when you have an e-ruck system. I also wouldn't be surprised if you have, New Zealand has some major companies here that build and develop. We are a leader in e-ruck systems in this country. And I wouldn't be surprised if they've been in the minister's ears saying this is possible. Technically it is socially trickier.
It is possible. I mean, there are, at last count, about 17 or 18 different benefits of a ruck system versus a fed system in terms of differential charging, etc. And one of the beauties about it being electronic, it is also one of its Achilles heels. And it's the big brother syndrome that they have to overcome, because you need to know when that vehicle is on the road and which bit of road. But imagine that they would have to have a system that has a high confidence of trust that the revenue generated can only be used, the information to generate that revenue can only be used and kept internal, can't be swapped with any other agencies like insurance, police, IRD, etc. And that's increasingly hard in the government, where they have these cross agreements about data sharing. But you take a car that travels a bit of road, you could then say, well, for this stretch of national roads of significance from Otaki past Levin, let's take for example, every time you drive that, the funding, they'll know when you start that bit of road and when you leave it. And that funding then can go to a PPP. So it's not just differential charging, but it's also funding for road construction, funding for road maintenance. There's just a much greater versatility around supply, demand, maintenance, construction, and commercial arrangements to make that happen. So it's
I've always said
system.
If they 4-laned from Auckland to Wellington, made it a smooth, easy, efficient trip, I'd be more than happy to pay $100 every time I did that trip. It would be worth it and save fuel and save time. And if that's what such a system allocated, then so be it.
Yeah. But it won't, and you know it won't. You know it won't, Richard.
Come on, let the Chinese in there. Let the Chinese build a road from Auckland to Wellington, and they can toll it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't forget, we talked about this, and David, while you were away, I think, on this show, I said to you right from the get-go that they would not make this work in the 12-month window. That was just an impossible pipe dream. So here we are. No, it's not going to happen. But I'm going to take a slightly more pragmatic.
It's not going to happen in this term.
No, that's right, and that's what we talked about as well. And again, certain people might have said that I was being a little bit unambitious in my targeting. So if I go back to reality, not looking at how the funding is used, but the sheer physical process of trying to bring a population on board with ruck is to take a whole lot longer than a year or two. And then we start talking about the word of transitioning and what sort of equity is involved in that. Does that mean we're going to see just freshly registered vehicles transitioning to e-ruck? Are we going to see freshly registered new vehicles? Are we going to have an age bracket? What are we going to do? And I can see down the track all sorts of nasty, nasty stumbling blocks for whichever government is in power at the time to overcome with the population. And out here, outside of the Beltway in Wellington, in real world West Auckland, I can see, to use David's phrase, this going down like a cup of cold sick. It's going to. People do not like the idea of this sort of invasive structure in their lives. I think there might have been a better sell with it on a paper license basis, irrespective of whether you agree with this or not. I'm not talking about whether I agree with it. I'm just looking at the general population. But to then put that level of electronic control on their vehicle in knowledge of what it does and where it goes, that's going to be a really tough sell indeed. Good luck with that one.
I hate to tell you this, people, but they can track your cell phones already.
Yeah, we know that, and we talk about this all the time, and no one seems to give a shit. But I know, but people
you track your car. You track your car, and they do. Graham, the biggest issue.
Yes, indeed.
The biggest issue is not diesel vehicles. The big issue is petrol. You can transition new diesel and imported used diesels to electronic by just simply saying, if you're not electronic, you've got to pay for your ruck manually. It's fine. Yeah. Petrol's the issue, because if you are doing if you make it an e-ruck system only on new vehicles, which is the simplest way of transitioning because of the cost of retrofitting, what happens when you rock up to the pump? I'm now on an e-ruck system. How does the pump know that I'm on e-ruck? So I've got to then pay fed and then claim it back. That's just not going to happen. So they have to think carefully about that, which is why I've always maintained, go cold turkey, have both paper and e-ruck system while you transition to total e-ruck.
Which is the way at the moment.
You can't do it any other way.
You can run paper or electronic at the moment.
Yep.
To be honest, we've got the 2 electric vehicles. We are going to go and pay and have electronic ruck. There's a cost to it. There's a lease cost on the equipment, But to me, considering how horrific the fees are on buying ruck labels, and the fact that my wife will probably forget to buy ruck, there's a massive potential saving to me, or at least hassle saving, in putting those ruck units into our cars. And then that's 2 more cars on the road that have ruck units in them. It's just
that's what we do
process.
that's what we do with diesel vehicles now. So I just I'm surprised that officials have obviously got to Simeon, and I'm a little bit disappointed because while officials, and I don't want to do a downer on them, while they have been keen to come into a ruck system, they do tend to want to be able to build the perfect system before it's in place, and that's, I just think that's a little bit of foolish thinking. We have to have a huge degree of pragmatism in this discussion around how we do it.
They need this to happen fast too. They need to transition these cars fast for political reasons as well, because over the next 2 years we are going to see the cost of at the pump, by the time you add taxes onto petrol, rocket. Because we've got multiple Fed increases coming. We've got increases, the application and increases of ETS charges to fuel at the pump. That's coming. That's already been well indicated. We are staring down the barrel of 91's probably going to cost you close to $3.50 a litre at the pump by the middle of next year, or the end of next year. And that's going to be quite a bitter pill to swallow for the public when it comes to how this national, and I know that they've got these other parties in there, but essentially that's what's going to be seen, this national government is doing for their cost of living. So they need to transfer that over to ruck, if for no other reason that, the same amount of income is probably going to be coming in, if not more. At least it's not seen as petrol price, but petrol cost at the pump is up. It's a simple metric, that one.
And one more issue around this: if you think West Auckland is bad, and I know West Auckland, I've lived there for quite a while in my younger days.
Hey, hello, come on in.
Me too.
I'm a Westie. Then try motorcyclists. They hate this sort of thing. You'd have to bring motorcycle community along as well, and no one's thought about that. So, yeah,
ruck on a motorcycle.
That's petrol.
Across the road from us on Wednesday was a headhunter's funeral. There was about 300 headhunters and associate, good community-minded people, and about the equivalent number of police watching them at the funeral. And I would probably caution at that point in time, if they can't regulate around the 460 decibels of their loud pipe saves lives bullshit, and the burnouts and the no plates and the no helmets, everything else, how the hell are they going to deal with ruck?
Hey, look, I would like to point something out, right? So if they're on fuel excise, or if they're on a paper ruck system on those bikes, when they're doing a burnout, they're still essentially paying road, tax equivalent to how many miles that tire is traveling when they're doing that burnout. If they're on a GPS e-ruck system, they aren't. They're not paying for those extra spins of the tire. It's free. It's free. It's free distance. There's a genuine benefit there.
A community message to the motorcycle gang community of New Zealand, brought to you from Richard. You don't have to worry about your burnout cost anymore on e-roads. Think about that for a second.
Only a journalist would come up with that little detail, Richard.
That's the same. I mean, look, that's the same reason why why trucking companies go e-ruck, isn't it? Is because the second they drive off the tarmac onto the yard, or the second they drive up onto that forestry road, or the second they drive off onto that farm road, the clock stops.
Yeah. And that is right, and that's not to be understated. That's quite a significant consideration.
Yes, it'll mean that a lot of families will, families often start their driving lessons for their kids in the supermarket car park. They will now entirely teach their child how to drive in the supermarket car park forever, as opposed to ever going on the roads, because they're going to pay. Anyway,
would it
on to something.
Footpaths, I wonder. Asking for a friend. I
guess if you're going in the same kind of line, boaties will be wrapped by the whole situation. Just so.
They will. They
yes.
will.
Yes. Now, more industry speakers for AutoTalk Live, that wonderful conference coming up on May 7, hosted by myself, with perhaps a little bit of help from that man slightly below me. A few more speakers have been announced. So we have added Emily Turnbull, the marketing manager for classifieds at Trade.me. She's going to be talking about the importance of branding and a few little broader data trends and a few other things. We have Henry Sinclair. He is from Autograb. He's going to be talking about, I go back to my list, delve into the company's systems to demonstrate how data can save you time at a dealership level. And we all know that time is money. And then we've actually got a dealer speaking. So we've got a car company head this year. We've got the head of the biggest dealerish in the country, I guess you'd say, Todd Hunter. And we've got Dave Boot from Drive EV, not to be confused with Hamilton EV, down in Christchurch, who's going to be talking about carbon trading. He's been doing a lot of carbon trading, and he's got some really interesting data that he's going to share there with us and us. Now, we might have one or two more little things to come out, but we're getting pretty close now to a fairly full speaker list for this event. So if you haven't bought your tickets yet, go to autotalk.co.nz/live and get them. We are getting really low on tables. If you want to have the full-on party with your table and bring 88 people, then you need to get in now and buy those. We are putting snacks on the tables. So if you like snacks, a couple of grand for a table.
Everyone likes snacks.
Free snacks.
Everyone likes snacks.
If you're sitting in the theatre seat, you've got to get up to get your snacks. So just saying. Yeah, that should be a fun day. You looking forward to it, Graham?
Well, clearly the cheesels were on the menu. Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'll be there.
Yeah.
I really am. And this is not a plug, because I was at the last event and I took away so much really useful information about just little things about our business and things we could do different, or things we could look at differently or better, or it was a really stellar lineup. And I think this year, looking at the speakers, the same thing again. And you can divide the industry into those that actually genuinely want to improve the business they have, or are always looking at ways of doing better, or verifying that what they're doing is the right thing, and those that just don't care and they wonder why business is going out the back door on a regular basis. Well, you can work out which group attends these sort of functions and should be attending these sort of functions. So if you're in that group and you want to get ahead, particularly in the challenges of 2024-25, information is good. And this is information.
Now, we've had a couple of tickets sell literally while we've been on air, so congratulations on buying a ticket, Conrad and Hannah. We look forward to seeing you there. So, yes. If you want to come up, David, I'm happy to throw you a ticket. You can ride the bike up, park it outside Brad's, and turn up for the networking session.
I think at that time the ride would be a little bit far. I'll be in Utah, USA.
Ooh. Oh, we do have a live stream available. There's a live stream ticket for those that can't make it in person. I have an answer for everything. Yeah. Anyway, now on to a bit more ruck stuff. Though we'll try and keep the pace going here, lads, because we're 40 minutes in and only in 4 stories.
All right.
Government stick with $38 ruck rate feature. We touched on this. We touched on this last week. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. And it's a cock up. It's a cock up. It's
so
a cock
basically,
work to the advantage of the PHEV community.
Yeah. Basically, the government MPs who sat in that select committee spouting quite a bit of nonsense and vitriol, if I'm honest, including my local MP, who basically implied that EV owners should be punished now because ute owners had to pay the ute tax, which is not how government works. Decided that they wouldn't, that they were going to run through basically everything as it was. They weren't going to touch the legislation. It was going to be $76 and $52 for EV and ruck. And those cheeky fellas over at Labour, they decided to put in an amendment that the ruck rate should be $38, which is below the industry suggested rate of $42. And those cocky government MPs accidentally voted for it. And it kind of cornered the Transport Minister, and so he's letting it go. And the PHEV rate is going to be $38, which is hilarious. It's great for PHEVs. It's being seen in the EV community as a bit of a finger up to them, and that this is just another vote towards petrol. Whatever. David, have you ever seen a legislative cock up like this in your time?
I have. They are sadly not uncommon. and most of them are undone relatively quickly, but the public face of this one meant that would be unpalatable. I'm of two minds of this. In a way, I thought the industry trade associations were unnecessarily bleating when they almost crying crocodile tears. Being a bit severe, but on the other hand, that's why I'm in two minds. If you bring in a ruck system for light vehicles, having everything, but every vehicle below 3.5 tons set at the same rate is inequitable. I would have preferred to have seen it based on weight a little bit, 0 to 2 tons, 2 to 3.5. So PEVs have got away with it. They did need to have the rate lowered, to be honest, in my view, and so they've made a win. So it's not going to cost the government a lot. And a lot of those PEV owners will be driving more than they won't be driving on electric a lot. They don't drive on electric as a lot as what they make out, as it turns out. So they'll still be paying through Fed.
I think it's interesting. It's fallen a little bit into the hands of some of the Chinese distributors that are in the process at the moment of launching some fairly serious long-range PHEV models. So we've got the BYD Seal. We've talked about this before. BYD Seal coming up, CLU coming up with a 100k range on PHEV. The MG ZS HS Plus coming out soon with a 120k EV range. The BYD Ute with a 100k range, and there's a whole pile of other things coming. A lot more longer range PHEVs coming from both there and Europe. And it has fallen somewhat in the favor of those vehicles, and I think that they will be looked at very favorably by fleets. Over the next
I think you're right. Yeah, granted, that will make a difference. So the moment you get over a 75 to 80k range on a PEV, that sort of decision is material, because people will go to the hassle of plugging it in every day, because it's a huge difference. Yeah,
there's big savings to be made there. So
it actually throws the argument for Toyota, for example, far more in the way of the RAV4 PEV Prime than it does a B4ZX, if you look at the numbers. I wonder if that'll hurt sales as well. But can
only Toyota New Zealand officially sold the RAV4 Prime.
Can I just ask a little question here once again, everybody involved in this little sorry episode? Can we just stop calling the damn things hybrids?
Yes,
please?
I don't. I call them PHEVs.
Yeah. God.
What are they calling them, Graham?
Oh,
a lot of the media
very
call them plug-in hybrids and then cut them down to hybrids as they continue on through their conversation.
Oh.
Radio New Zealand's bad at it. The Herald and stuff have done it once or twice.
Yep. Headlines everywhere. Hybrid. And so, David, if you've missed the news on this one, I've been banging on this one for the last 7 or 8 weeks. I can tell you, every single week, people come and say, I don't buy one of those hybrid cars. I read on the Herald or stuff for Radio New Zealand that those hybrids are going to get road user charges. And they show you, and they're right, because it says on the report from Get Stuffed or things like that, hybrids, they say, EVs and hybrids to pay road user charges. Who can blame people for not knowing what they're talking about? And I think a lot of the motoring media, Richard, I think are probably a little bit Spartan in their language that don't need to be.
I didn't do it.
This has got all the hallmarks. Way back when the first EV leadership group was set up, Ministry of Transport were doing some work around EVs. And I said you need to call them plug-in vehicles that plug in, because the industry and public have a different understanding, but no, they called everything an EV. And this shortening of the terminology is distinctly unhelpful.
Yeah. Right, let's move on to some nice stuff. Ford New Zealand dealerships win Ford President's Award. So Ford New Zealand announced the winners of its annual President's Awards at its gala dinner hosted at the Fiji Marriott Resort in Momi Bay, Fiji. That's where you can go for your dealer principals convention when you're selling a heck of a lot of Rangers. The event was attended by Ford dealer principals, their partners, and Ford New Zealand team members. The winners of the 2023 Ford President's Awards were Andrew Collett, Fairview Motors Hamilton, John Hutchinson, Tina Hutchinson Ford Christchurch, Paul McKendry Ford Blenheim, Nathan Abernathy, Regional Ford Gore, and Peter Glewis Ford Ashburton. Lovely comments there. And of course, that was a probably a bit of a farewell for Simon Rutherford, who's heading off
Mm.
out of the country, though we do not know where yet. So yes.
There's a point to make out of this before you move on. Have you noticed something and we see this consistently, that the award winners are, with one exception, all from the South Island. Real stronghold for that good Kiwi product. So, except with the exception of one, those are all good, strong regional South Island dealerships.
Well, it wasn't going to be a certain Auckland dealership.
I'm still trying to get over the shirts.
For those who know, Vern would be proud. Right. BMW's done the same. BMW Group New Zealand announced its 2023 Dealer of the Year awards winners. Now, is it going to be South Island dealers?
No.
BMW of the Year, Dealer of the Year, Coombs Johnson, Hamilton, Mini Dealer, Christchurch Mini Garage.
Tauranga, of course, Tauranga is there.
Excellence in Financial Services, Auckland City BMW, After Sales, Coombs Johnson Tauranga, Excellence in Customer Service, Coombs Johnson Hamilton, and Excellence in Marketing, Christchurch BMW. So it seems the Hamilton and broader Waikato region, doing well there with BMW. They didn't go to Fiji, apparently. They went to Auckland.
Oh, okay.
You
went to
poor
Auckland.
buggers.
Okay.
Hell,
you used import tray. Lucky to go to Valentine's around the corner these days.
Hey, come on! Look, we took you to the Pullman for the 25th for the import industry. Now, in fairness, that was nearly a decade ago, but it also cost quite a bit of money. There's a new brand in New Zealand. We've touched this before. KGM, so KG Mobility, has landed. This is basically SsangYong. They've launched a new vehicle, the Torres, which I think is quite a fetching little unit. So that's under the Inchcape group in New Zealand. They've got some big plans for that brand in New Zealand. Their first car comes as a petrol or an electric vehicle, and it is, and I've done the numbers, the best value battery-wise electric vehicle in New Zealand. 73.4 kilowatt usable BYD-made Blade LFP battery. And you can have one of those to driving out to start for, in a Neon RAV4 size SUV for under $67,000. So on kilowatt hours per dollar, that's knocking around that $800 a kilowatt hour mark. So that's a lot of electric vehicle value, and probably one of the few electric vehicles in New Zealand that is challenging the Tesla Model Y on an overall size, space, and range for dollar basis. So interesting one there, interesting car there, and we'll see what comes of that in the market. And relatively narrow gap between the petrol and the EV too. In the context of things, it's about a 16 grand gap. So yeah. Just another little one. Isuzu D-Max BEV ute coming here? Question mark. That's their new BEV ute. Will be here in a year or two's time. Was shown at the Bangkok International Motor Show. It has a 3.5 ton tow rating, 1,000 kilogram payload, but it's only got a 66 kilowatt hour battery. So I'm not sure if you'll make it all the way to the boat ramp with that one with a 3.5 ton boat on the back. Yes,
it's a bit light.
Yes, it's a bit light on battery. Probably needs like a 120 kilowatt hour battery. Then it would be in play, I think. Via welcomes new member AutoTrader. So AutoTrader has joined Via as a member. This is not particularly surprising, considering that Nichibo has been a massive supporter. Well, the Optimus Group through Nichibo and others has been a massive supporter of Via over the years, and AutoTrader, of course, now has Optimus Group as a near-on half owner, I believe. Via's encouraging members to explore AutoTrader's suite of services. That's an interesting line there. Geneva Finance has been censored for a governance issue, but expects profits to decrease. We won't focus on the governance issue too much. It was around having an independent, lacking an independent director. The company self-reported, so I think they've done the right thing on that. But they have restated that they are expecting their earnings to decline by 23.8% for this
that's a drop.
financial or this half year,
Mm.
which shows potentially, the issues the market is facing. Though generally in the last year, finance operations have actually not done too badly because, of course, we've seen people shift away from mortgage funding for their vehicles. But maybe they're expecting a bit more. They've also exited their invoice factoring and debt litigation operations. In a market like this, invoice factoring becomes a very dangerous business because generally those who want their invoices factored are probably not in the greatest of shape. Yes, interesting one there.
Well, I think it's indicative of the wider financial market out there. It's definitely, we talk about it being tough out there, and the finance industry has probably been late to the party to catch up with just how difficult it's been. And we've talked about the reasons as to why. But if you look at the number of brokers out there now, the number of different finance companies, the reps on the road, there's a lot of competition for a market that's shrunk and consumers that are currently right now notoriously debt shy and looking at not actually financing at all, but are making purchasing based on their financial, actually money in the bank at the time. Right now, and again, this sort of leads into it, it appears to be, in Auckland anyway, a real shortage of cheap, good used cars. And I'm talking cheap, I'm talking $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. Stuff that people could probably scrape together a few shekels by borrowing off the family to buy. And the reason I think why is the market's had a bit of a shift back into cheap stuff that people could buy without debt and run on the current household budget without having to go and have a finance payment as well. The lenders like Geneva and others that sit in the second tier of most dealership lending are the ones that'll feel that the worst because that's the very market that's had a bit of a shift away.
Let's shift back to cheaper cars. Do anyone come in and slap the car on the credit card? Because I've got an 11% credit card, right? And I'm sitting there going, that's almost cheaper than going out and getting, I can get cheaper finance that because we're a business, blah, blah, blah. But I know for friends who are out there shopping in the used car market, that's cheaper than some of the finance you can put out for them.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you do. We have people shopping with credit cards. Yeah. And there's credit card surcharges and stuff that will come as well, obviously, in any marketplace. But buy it because we get whacked with it. But by and large, at the moment, I think that it almost could be in the credit card's favour. But if you've got to use a credit card to buy the car in the first place, if you're shopping in the used import trade, it's probably quite likely that your credit card interest rate is not going to be 11%.
No, that's unfair. That's an interesting way of putting that one. Yeah. Right. Parts manager celebrates 30 years with Ilam Toyota. He must be really bored of the coffee there by now. Ilam Toyota parts manager Aaron Watson is celebrating his 30-year anniversary with the business, which is a member of the privately owned Canterbury-based Miles Group. Watson joined Ilam Toyota just a few years after its inception. It was the Miles Group's first Toyota dealership, which was established in Riccarton in 1987 and became the third largest Toyota franchise in New Zealand after just 8 years of operation. Aaron is one of the cornerstones of our business at Ilam Toyota, and one of the reasons why it's been so successful, said Ilam branch manager Paul Taylor. Starting as a groomer and working as on the boss's race car team. Well, that's why he's probably still there. Aaron found his feet in the parts department, where he now holds the title of parts manager. His rapport with our customers in both the panel and mechanical business over the years has led to the success of our team and external stakeholders, along with making lifelong friendships. The number of happy customers Aaron has helped is almost too high to count. Dealerships, if you got a guy like that, keep him. Look after him.
He's gold.
Keep him. Because he probably knows.
He's the guy who knows where the kingpin is for the 1984 Land Cruiser. He's the guy.
Yep. At a place like Riccarton, he's probably like finding parts for 1985 4Runners that are being dashed up and down the riverbeds every weekend. And yeah. Though he started as a groomer, so I'm amazed is he still time for him to go on to own a dealership? I mean, groomer, dealership owner, that's the path.
It definitely can be done.
Yes.
Yep. So my dealer principal here that I work with, one of my best friends, he literally started out in the business as the groomer.
Does he like the term dealer principal? Does he use the term dealer principal?
I don't think he's even heard of the term, Richard, let alone use it. We just all wear the same T-shirts around here at the end of the day. There's no hierarchy here at Croydon's, but no, you can do it. And look, we've talked about these stories before, where we've seen people that have started at the very bottom of the ladder in the industry, and they've worked their way up through sheer grit and skill and combination, I guess, of duration, length of time, but you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah. Yep. Right. Now on to the next one. Writers honour Quinn for outstanding contribution to motoring. Entrepreneur and motorist Tony Quinn has become the latest recipient of the Neil Nelson Trophy from the New Zealand Motoring Writers Guild. The award is bestowed upon individuals whom the Guild has considered to have gone above and beyond the norm and contributing to the motoring landscape in New Zealand. So the past 11 recipients of the Neil Nelson Award have included Guildtrap Group founder and philanthropist Colin Guildtrap, used vehicle importer and Rally New Zealand chair PJ Johnston, and the late Formula One Ferrari driver Chris Amon, who engineered cars for Tour New Zealand. And V8 supercar driver and road safety advocate Greg Murphy. I got to hand over at least a couple of those trophies. In my time, the Guild Award started in 1998 in honour of the memory of the late Neil Nelson of Palmerston North, a former president of the Guild. So yeah, we've got to admit, it's a good choice. Quinn has contributed a heck of a lot to the motorsport scene, and I guess the broader automotive scene in New Zealand. I mean, his facilities have just been game changers, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's a name that's easily recognisable.
Yeah, well, he's prepared to put his money where his mouth is. And in the motorsport fraternity, and where there's a lot of always rattling the cages about Tony Quinn, because he has so much of an involvement in various tracks. But I would have to say that if it wasn't for Tony putting his money down and making these things happen, we may not have half the motorsport facilities now that we currently enjoy, nor to a standard that we currently enjoy as well. So it's well deserved. Have
you enjoyed any of his facilities on one of your bikes, David?
Not on one of my bikes. I did get to drive around the South Island facility a few years back.
Island.
I've been on all of his tracks because he owns the 3 now. He acquired Taupo. And I think the clever thing about what he does is just the overall entertainment package that he's very good at putting in. Hamptons Downs is probably the least set up for that. Almost, it's got go-karts and a few other things there, but down at Highlands, I mean, we were there for a Tour de New Zealand festival. I took my classic MR2 down there, and we had my niece with me that day, and of course she wasn't that interested in watching the cars, but she was able to go on a tour of their dinosaur models they have out in the back of the track in a like high-ace van rigged out like a Jurassic Park vehicle. And of course they've got, the car museum there, hot laps, all sorts of stuff like that. They're smart business people. He's got a very good chief executive, I believe. And he puts together a good package. So it's great. Interestingly, we've got almost from having next to nothing in tracks closing, we've got an embarrassment of really good facilities in New Zealand now. To the point where I was speaking to a PR person, an Australian car company, and they now they were at times finding it more cost effective to rent a track in New Zealand, one of Quinn's facilities, and fly their customers over to New Zealand for experience days than it was to do it in Australia. At various times. It was easy to get the cars in here and out of here, or just use cars that are on the ground. The tracks in Australia have very low availability because they're used for so many things, or they have restrictions about when they're able to be used. And they just found it so much easier to come to New Zealand to one of Quinn's facilities and do it here. And of course, it's special for the clients. So we think of it just as, motorsport, and I think tracks used to just be these kind of dead assets that would sit there owned by a club and used once in a while. And now you've got them being professionally owned by the likes of Tony Quinn and operating them in a way where they are busy businesses that are pumping 7 days a week and turning money and making it viable for us to have those fantastic facilities. So you may think it's just motorsport, but it really is a big part of the business. And lastly, just a reminder that the March issue of AutoTalk is out and available. Got some great stories. We covered some of them there. We look at Wall Dumper's retirement. We have a really big interview with Rod Milner, who is looking like he's going to retire, though he has a few weasel words around that. Never say never, I speak with Rod.
No.
He's got some plans to build a big facility, but I think he's been talking about that for quite a while. I think this might be like the second I might retire interview we've done with Rod over the years. We talk about that. We have the winners of the Bioscore Awards. look at a few other things around dealership movements and so forth. So a really good magazine to go there and download. And it has a guest editorial by Mr. Graham McDonald.
Yes,
Just
lots of
saying.
angry words, I do believe. Yes.
Yeah. So,
Well, at least
59
not a real
minutes and
estate
50
agent.
seconds. How's that for
And we
us
covered off the
almost
real.
actually being on time?
I know we did well.
Talking
We
of-
covered off the real estate industry as well.
And talking about real estate, I saw 7,000 kilometres of it in February
Oh, wow.
on the motorbike. So 2,400 around the western side of the North Island and 4,600 kilometres around the South Island. It was
Wow.
magic.
Any particular highlight
Nice
locations that are particularly good at the moment?
We decided when we were heading from Wanaka down to Te Anau to detour to Glenorchy, and about halfway up there, there's a pullover site for looking up the Lake Wanaka towards the Dart and the Reese. And we hit that on a clear day. It was just absolutely magic. The view was great, the mountains and the lake. It was just pristine sort of backcountry New Zealand. We also hit Milford Sound. I've got a couple of photos of Milford Sound that people rate as a wow factor. It never disappoints, although you don't hang around very long there with the sandflies.
Yes, I was about to say, how long did it take you to scrape those out of the bike crevices?
Yeah. But and we hit the west coast. It just bucketed down with rain, and that was a day that both mine and my wife's wet weather gear decided to give up. I realised that they were 12 years old and probably due to give up. So when we got to Wanaka, it was a quick visit to a motorbike shop.
Did you when you say the west coast? Did you go up the west coast?
We went down the west coast. We actually sort of did the entire west coast, Carramere all the way down to Port Jackson. So
did you hit the Hokitika Sandwich Company?
No.
Next time.
It's very good.
Best pie of the trip.
Good.
That's the important question. Best pie of the trip. Where was that?
Well, it's a hard choice, really.
There's some good mutton pies down south.
Yeah. No, there was a really great steak pie in Collingwood.
Okay, there you go. Oh, well, Graham, we've got a few EV road trips coming this year. Hopefully, maybe we need to go try the pie in Collingwood.
We did good pies on the way up to Haast, I do believe. We were waiting for that Renault thing to have yet another charge. And I think it was the roaring season was going on, and we were eating pies outside this little rustic cafe in a place that name eludes me, on the entrance to Haast, or to the Haast Pass anyway, from the Wanaka side. And it was stags roaring like crazy off to the side, and they were very, very good pies, as I recall. Very good pies.
Oh yeah, there's that little cafe. I'm thinking of the name. It's a little settlement about halfway between.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's closer to Wanaka. It's just
Makarora.
Makarora. That's the one. They do an excellent pie as well.
Do a good pie there. Yeah, top tips.
One of the interesting things about New Zealand is the status of our pie industry. It has never been better. It's just so many good pies. Shop in Ranfurly is fairly famous for its pies as well. So it never disappoints. I did eat a few too many pies, I have to admit, but I've since lost all of the weight I gained. It's all come back off again.
Yeah, I think we risked heading down a track of just factory-made junk for a while, but we seem to have fought back, and the artisan buyers survived. And there's a couple of factories that are more niche and regional and do a very good pie. I'm on a diet at the moment, so I'm not sure how many I'll be eating in the near future, but I do love a good pie. Heart surgeon say about pies, Graham?
Beg your pardon?
What does your heart surgeon say about pies?
Sorry, it's not working. Not working. Can't hear.
And one last little tidbit. One tiny last little tidbit. Someone yesterday decided, after hearing all this vitriol about how terrible electric vehicles are, probably a New Zealand first voter, hate me if you want for saying that, drove up to the Taupo superchargers, the Taupo Cesar superchargers, and took to them with a hammer.
Really?
Yep.
Ooh.
Yep. Having a rant. Guess what he drove up in?
And sadly, he didn't get electrocuted.
What?
Yes.
Come on, I want to hear that. The really good bit. What was he driving?
Guess what he drove up in, Graham?
No, not a BYD. Don't tell me a Ranger. I don't want to know. And
Ford
it was a
Ranger.
Mustang. We're not friends anymore.
It was a stereotypical. No, I don't want to say that because I love a Ranger as well. Ranger's a great unit.
I've had a
but it
Ranger,
was the-
so
It wasn't a Ranger. It's not the Ranger's fault. It was the stereotypical angry Ranger man. I think by the sounds of it, maybe a Tesla cut him off when he was trying to cut them off.
sigh.
Yes.
Bad news for Tesla that day. Yeah.
Well, luckily Tesla's just opened a far nicer, faster, more stand charging station about 5 minutes up the road. But yeah.
The irony that now there's a degree of irony. It's like all that work and then you walk around the
So all
corner
I can say,
oh,
so all I can say, Richard, to that little tidbit of news is that is sad news, but not shocking news.
No, well done.
oh, that's a low voltage joke, David. That really is.
Oh,
Oh, I'm detecting a bit of resistance there.
I'm out of coffee, guys.
this is all a bit flat. Anyway, we'll catch you later.
I'm out of coffee. Let's go.